Okay, we're back from the break, and before that, for those who tuned in late, Ray had posed a good question about constipation and use of laxatives, and I think that was very important. In that, one of the things that can happen is normal bowel movements for people can be up to 3 to 5 days.
Yes.
And so you need to understand that regular for you is regular for you. It may not be for you or for me, but if you start using laxatives, then your bowels become dependent upon the laxatives.
Right.
And then what happens is you get into a very vicious cycle where you take the laxative, then you might get some rebound diarrhea and you try and plug that up, and that's a horrible cycle to be in. So you don't want to do that. And I like to use Miralax or Glycolax. I like it because it's glycolated protein. It holds on the water. And the other stool softeners, the senna, don't produce gas or some other vegetables. I mean,
well, I think that's right. One of the things we've had trouble with is getting people to stop regularly using milk of magnesia.
Oh, yeah.
It can stimulate so much that it burns the nerves of the bowel, and you're never going to have a bowel movement again. I've seen a fair number of people with that. You have to dissuade them because they become very dependent.
And then they get constipated, they go in for a colonoscopy, and then the GI will send you a picture of their gut, of their colon, and they get melanosis coli, which is a black colon because of using all of the phenolphthalein-based laxatives. And so it becomes a very, very, difficult problem. So a word to the wise out there, please don't use a laxative. Please use some type of stool softener that, you know what I heard a long time ago? Metamucil. You know? And the reason Metamucil is better than senna or some of the other ones is actually a refined psyllium husk. So, yeah.
Yep.
And so it
draws water into the bowel.
Yeah, and so it holds on to water. It actually helps with diarrhea, believe it or not, because it holds water when it absorbs some of the water when you have loose stool, and it's good for that irritable bowel syndrome where you've got alternating diarrhea, constipation, so it'll absorb water, and then it will also give water up if you're constipated. So it works both ways. So I don't know.
Switch the focus a little bit, Mike. What do you tell patients about colonoscopies here? I've seen a fair amount of reluctance for people. It's an easy exam. People are embarrassed. They think it's going to be painful. It's none of the above.
No.
It was not much different in New York when I was there, but I'm finding a resistance to that, and it's an important test.
I think it's because of the travel. My big thing that I hear from patients is they have to go to Vegas to get it done. And Sorensen out at the hospital was doing them, but I think he got inundated with them when they found that he was doing them.
Yes.
And I think for someone who's a renal transplant doctor to be putting tubes up people's rears is kind of a letdown. I mean, he wants to do surgery, right? But he'll do them because the hospital wanted him to do them.
I think that's right.
But I mean, and he's very good at it. He's done quite a few of them. But I think you're right. I think people they think the prep is bad, and I think the hardest thing is downing 144 cc's of fluid over a period of day, and that is a tough thing, especially when you're not used to drinking that much water. But they get diarrhea and they think it's going to burn, and it doesn't. It's pH balanced, so the prep doesn't burn, and it's not painful at all. And they're worried about traveling. I think as we get older, sometimes people have some stool incontinence and they're worried about, leaking on the way to Vegas, and then they don't have the transportation. And they give them I'm thinking Propofol. I was thinking of Michael Jackson. They were giving them Propofol, and then they have to have someone to drive them home.
Yes.
So transportation is a big issue, and I don't know with the hospital being bought out if they're going to change that at all. I don't know if they're going to use the hospital as still a transport system down to the valley system, and they're not really going to, they may just consider it as a tunnel, meaning that way they don't go to Desert Springs or they don't go to whatever, they just go to the university or whatever that United or whatever that group is. What is it? I mean,
UHC, United Healthcare.
Yeah, United Healthcare.
Yeah.
Or whatever the UHC group is that bought out the hospital. So I'm hoping services would increase. They certainly have the revenue and the means to bring that stuff in there, but I just don't know. The jury's out. What do you think is going to happen as a buyout?
I don't think any of us are going to know until we know, and that's a vague answer, but we truly don't know what their plan is.
Yeah. So.
Another approach to that is to do the fecal occult blood testing. You take a little cardboard card home in the privacy of your own home. You take a small stool sample, put it on the card, drop it in an envelope, get yourself all cleaned up, and the lab will tell you whether there's any blood. The American Cancer Society and the American College of Physicians both say that this is something that is just as good for colon cancer screening for those who can't or won't do a colonoscopy, as long as you do it every year for 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you tell folks.
Yeah, that's what we tell people.
We've done a lot of that.
Oh yeah, and the fecal kits now are different. You don't have to require to put stool on the card. You actually just get the water around the stool. So they'll actually send the card back if you paint stool on it. If you're just doing the water, you get a better thing. Ray, you're back on the line. Good to call you here. You're back.
Yeah, I see nobody's calling in. I said, I got to keep this show going. You're doing pretty good right now. But I was thinking, when you said pH balance, didn't someone get a Nobel Prize for saying cancer cannot exist in a pH environment? And if so, how do you reduce your body to accept that, to become more acid-free, so to speak? Is it by diet or something? Somebody must have tried something to, get rid of cancer. I know they try it with the Trojan horse and baking soda and things like that. But is there something that people can take or eat on a regular basis to reduce, the possibility of getting cancer by changing the balance in their diet? And answer that, and I'll maybe call later if you guys are in trouble.
Thanks, Ray.
Not trouble.
They have water filters out there. They have programs out there where you can filter your water and increase or decrease the acidity in it so it's more alkaline.
Right.
And I have heard that in an alkaline environment, cancer doesn't do well. If that's you guys' forte, but.
Well, I think the body is slightly alkaline anyway, okay? But you got two mechanisms. You got your lungs and your kidneys, and they are working to create a pH balance in your system. If your kidneys don't work, then you blow off carbon dioxide, which is blowing off acid. Your kidneys help to excrete it. So you can't really create an alkaline environment somewhere without one of the organ systems trying to correct it.
Right. So
you may be able to shed it a few tenths of a point, but the key to that would be, I think, not becoming acidotic. If you're trying to become alkalotic, which is a higher pH, trying not to become acidotic would be your best bet if you were trying to prevent cancer. But I heard recently one of the drugs out there that's been out there for years, metformin, is actually being used to prevent cancer in a lot of patients, especially women in breast cancer, because it has an anti-inflammatory property.
Yep.
So, and it's very good for weight loss. It's very good in holding that. One of the things I thought about it is that I've always said insulin is very anabolic, and what that means, anabolic steroids, right? So we talked about that before. The bodybuilders of the world, they'll do this glucose load, and they'll inject themselves with insulin, and they'll go do this incredible workout to build muscle. So insulin, this hormone that we make all the time, builds anything. It builds fat, it builds muscle, it builds what we tell it to build. So if you're overweight and if you're unhealthy and you eat a lot and you stimulate insulin, you could stimulate growth anywhere.
Yes.
So would it not be plausible that insulin stimulating growth of tumor cells, growth of anything, might be something, and metformin, basically what it does is it blocks those insulin spikes. It holds them down. So that's why it controls weight, and it can be used very efficiently in weight loss programs. So for those people looking to prevent cancer, metformin might be something there.
You got Steve on the line?
Well, yeah. Steve, come on, give us your question. We got 3 minutes and we're going to break, and if we have to hold you over, we'll do that.
Okay, what do you know about B17 for cancer?
Laetrile?
I know it's not FDA approved.
Right.
I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, B17 is one of those things that and I can't base it on any fact because nobody's done any studies on it.
They haven't.
But there are a lot of people that believe in B17 as an anti-cancer drug. I had one patient tell me one day he was just going to smoke, drink, and do everything he wanted to do, and he was going to take tons of B17 because he was sure that it was going to prevent cancer. And I think if you can get your hands on it, I think it's from the Journal of Irreproducible Results. What that means is that, you know, there's been no controlled studies on it. My core belief is that it does help, but you can't get it in the States. It's only Mexico.
They use a lot of that therapy down in Mexico. At the,
Have you had any?
Yeah,
cancer
I-
clinics. Yeah.
I heard you're kind of not allowed to comment on it here in the United States.
Well, that I don't know. I'm waiting for the guys in the black coats to show up, but they can.
Yeah. But I was just wondering, my granddaughter here years ago, they were trying to give her B17. She had brain cancer. And that's one thing that we'd found, but she had stage 4 and there was nothing they could do.
Yeah. Too late.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a story after break about B17. You can hang on, but I do have a lady that did well and stopped it, and then her cancer recurred. So we'll be right back.
Hold on, Steve.